With the executive session.
Good morning. My name is Jason Ishii, Chairperson of the Authority. I now like to call to order the March 1st, 2023 Kakaako Authority meeting of the Hawaii Community Development Authority. And the time is now 9 o'clock.
Thank you, Chair. In accordance with section 92-3.7 Hawaii Revised Statute, the Hawaii Community Development Authority is holding today's Kakaako board meeting virtually on Zoom. The Zoom link details were included on the meeting agenda. Therefore, members of the public are welcome to join us on Zoom and also at our physical meeting site at the American Brewery Building, 547 Queen Street, second floor boardroom, Honolulu, Hawaii 96813. The meeting is being live streamed on HCDA's YouTube page. The HCDA communication staff is hosting this meeting. Once this meeting begins, everyone will be muted for clearer audio. Board members, if you have any comments or questions, please unmute yourself to speak. This is a public virtual meeting, so to prevent any distractions, if you are not a board member, staff member, or HCDA's Attorney General, please turn off your video during the meeting. If you are providing public testimony, your name will be called accordingly. Please turn your video on, clearly state your name and affiliation, and proceed with your testimony. When you are finished, please turn off your video. In accordance with section 92-3.7C, if the authority's ICP connection for the remote meeting is lost, the meeting will be recessed until the connection is restored. If the connection cannot be restored in 30 minutes, the meeting will be terminated and the authority will continue the meeting at another notice date. Thank you.
HCDA board members, please remain visible and audio during the meeting. Also, please acknowledge that you're present by either saying here or present. Let the record reflect the following members are present. Member Higa.
Present.
Member Miranda Johnson.
Present.
Member Nairzer.
Present.
Member Hirai.
Present.
Member Evans. Member Evans. Member Sakura.
Present.
Member Hasha. Do we have quorum?
We have quorum.
Excellent, thank you. For today's meeting, board members will have an opportunity to ask questions or provide comments after agenda item has been presented. Individuals from the public who have requested to provide verbal public testimony on a specific agenda item are on standby and will be permitted into the meeting respectively. First item on the agenda, regular meeting minutes of February 1st, 2023. Board members, revisions to the minutes were emailed to you. Are there any comments or corrections to the minutes? If there's no comments or questions, the minutes are approved as presented. Second item on the agenda is for information discussion only. It's the presentation and discussion regarding the respective maintenance and repair obligations of the Hawaii Community Development Authority as lessee and Komohale LP as lessor regarding the certain Kauhale Kakaako parking garage located at 860 Halekuila Street, Honolulu, Hawaii 96813, and further identified by Oahu tax map key numbers 2-1-050, parcels 013, 014, 015, 053, 063, 064, and 065, pursuant to that certain unrecorded lease agreement dated November 24th, 1993, as amended. Ms. Lindsay Doi, Asset Manager, will now present HCDA's staff report.
Good morning, members. This informational item is just to bring up a recent issue that has come up and to give you guys some background. The Kauhale Kakaako parking garage on Halekuila Street is an interesting arrangement between us, HCDA, and Komohale Limited Partnership, which Stanford Carr Development is I guess the operating entity. So HCDA actually operates and manages the parking garage component of Kauhale Kakaako, and Stanford Car operates the adjacent residential high rise over there. But we lease the garage now from Komohale LP or Stanford Car under a long-term lease, which expires in November of 2092. So it's a long time. It actually used to be leased to us by HHFDC, which subsequently sold it to Komohale LP. The reason we're bringing this up to you today is because the lease now with Komohale LP specifies certain maintenance obligations that HCDA has and that the lessor or Stanford with Komohale LP has. And there is some disagreement over who's responsible for what. Mainly this becomes important for some improvements that need to be done and some repairs that need to be done with an elevator and the surrounding wall, the curtain wall. I think if we can show you an image of the area we're talking about, or not, actually, no need. So we just wanted to bring this up. HCDA per section 28 of the lease is responsible for repairing and maintaining the existing building and improvements, which does include those passenger elevators servicing the garage. But that section also states, notwithstanding the structural repairs for the parking garage and the exterior maintenance and painting of said structure shall be the responsibility of the lessor. So like I mentioned, there are some repairs and improvements that need to be made both to the elevators and the surrounding curtain wall. So that wall right there on the outside of the garage there. And we just are discussing right now with Stanford Car and our representative legal teams as to who is responsible for what.
Okay. Members, are there any questions or comments on the staff report?
Member Higa here. Is this a common thing in terms of disputes over responsibilities in these public-private partnerships that comes up with HCDA?
Member Higa, maybe if I can answer that. I wouldn't, right now, I don't know if I would call it a dispute. I think there's some discussions going on. It's a matter of interpretation. I don't think it's a common thing. It's certainly something, disputes or disagreements is something I'd like to avoid for sure. I think what we're trying to do is bring it to the board's attention to inform them of this at this point of this difference in interpretation. We hope that we can move towards a resolution of it in some way.
Got it. Thank you. I just want to note for the record, I think it's important that as HCDA moves towards potentially more public-private partnerships of this type, revenue-generating public-private partnerships, that we're careful to clarify the responsibilities of all parties to avoid any potential disputes. Obviously, I want to see this resolved well, and I'm sure that it will be because both parties have an interest in resolving it. Just want to make sure as HCDA progresses into the future, we're being careful.
Yeah, and remember here, let me just kind of add, just to clarify too.
Did we lose them?
I lost them. They,
Okay, yeah.
I can't hear anything.
Yeah, I lost them too. I'm sure they'll restart once they get the Wi-Fi up.
Recording in progress.
Yeah, are we on? Can you guys
Member,
hear us?
member Higa, members, can you hear us now?
Yes.
So, member Higa, I think to your question, and I don't know when you lost me on it, but the words or the phrase public-private partnerships are used a lot, these days. I mean, this is a lessor-lessee relationship, but I think your point is well taken that in any kind of relationship, whether it's a public-private partnership or a lessor-lessee relationship, the obligations have to be clear. So I think that's one of the things that we're striving to, out of this, is to make clearer. So your point is well taken.
Thank you. And for the record, let's show that member Evans has joined us. Any other questions?
It's Kevin Sakota. I just want to make a point that I think this is one of the better producing financial assets that we have in our portfolio, right?
Yes.
But it's also, I'm not sure how well it aligns to what the HCDA is trying to do as far as running parking garages and et cetera, et cetera. So I just want to make it a point that, we have to look at sort of what our ideal portfolio mix is and make sure our asset managers are kind of, their efforts are aligned with what we're trying to do at the HCDA.
Yeah, I appreciate the comment, member Sakota. With this garage, the garage serves obviously the residents of Kahala and Kakaako, but it also serves another, I think, important function as sort of district parking. If another rail station were added near Warden Queen, this garage would be ideally suited for district parking. So it's it's definitely something that's within our wheelhouse, but I understand your point, member Sakota.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Do we have any public testimony?
No one signed up.
Do we want to go into an executive session?
Chair, I suggest that we do for this one.
Okay, is there a motion for the authority to convene in an executive session pursuant to HRS 92-5A4 to consult with the board's attorney on questions and issues pertaining to the board's powers, duties, privileges, and immunities and liabilities? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So second by Kevin.
Okay, thank you, member Evans, and second by member Sakota. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. I would like to request we're joining an executive session by Deputy Attorney General Kelly Suzuka, ACDA Executive Director Craig Nakamoto, ACDA staff Garrett Sasaki, Lindsay Doy, Charlene Ontai, and Tomalyn Soares. We estimate the executive session will last about 15 minutes.
Thank you,
And
Chair.
the time is now 9:14.
No,
You click on this thing for the picture.
Well,
Are you okay with
picture's
this?
still on the other side.
So can you do it here? Oh, yeah.
I'm not over understanding though.
Oh, no, because we do, whatever.
Interesting.
And Sabrina.
Okay, so we're unmuted now. Everyone, you can hear us.
Okay, ready?
No, no.
Oh, yeah. Facebook.
Yeah, we can. So they can just see whatever you're saying.
The regular meeting is now back in session and the time is 9:37. Next item on the agenda. This is decision-making. Consider authorizing the executive director to amend the development agreement with Stanford Carr KM2 LLC, a wholly owned affiliate of Stanford Carr LLC, dated April 11, 2018, for the development of the Innovation Holly project located at Kakaako Makai Lot C, Honolulu, Hawaii, tax map key number 12-1-015-052 to extend the developer feasibility period by an additional 6 months to allow Stanford Carr KM2 LLC to prepare a detailed development schedule and milestones as a condition to the board reviewing a further extension of the developer feasibility period beyond the 6-month period. Ms. Lindsay Doi, Asset Manager, now present HCDA staff report.
Members, this item is in regards to a development or a proposed development over at our Lot C property in Kakaako, Makai. That's the right now large surface parking lot adjacent to the UH Cancer Center and JABSOM building. Stanford Carr developed the Entrepreneur's Sandbox, which is run by HTDC on a portion of Lot C. And the second part of that project is supposed to be the Innovation Holly. So since April 2018, Stanford Carr has had the development agreement for that property to develop that building there on Lot C. Since then, of course, we've had the pandemic and he's asked for several extensions given the softening of the office market, reduced demand. And the current extension actually expires on April 10 of this year, 2023. So they've come back again to request an additional extension. Given though that it's been 4 years since the DA was originally signed and there hasn't been much activity as far as developing the Innovation Hale on Lot C. We had a discussion with Stanford Carr, and Kevin Kasai is here from Stanford Carr Development. And we talked about, any further extension being contingent upon some activity going on as far as reaching development milestones. So they agreed to a 6-month extension to give them some time to look again at the office market demand, or perhaps, some other avenue as far as developing that property, and then come back with a list of milestones that they would meet in order to further extend this development agreement. So the request before you today is whether to grant a 6-month extension of that DA. Otherwise, like I mentioned, it will expire on April 10 of 2023. I do have Kevin here from Stanford Carr Development if you have any questions as to their development plans or their request.
So members, are there any questions or comments on the staff report? Is there any public testimony? No. Okay. So there's no public testimony or any comments. Is there any other further discussion? Do you think we need an executive session? No executive session is motioned this time. Is there a motion for the authority to authorize the executive director to amend the development agreement with Stanford Carr KM2 LLC, a wholly owned affiliate of Stanford Carr LLC, dated April 11, 2018, for the development of the Innovation Holly project located at Kakaako Lot C, Honolulu, Hawaii, tax map key number 12-1-015-052 to extend the developer feasibility period by an additional 6 months to allow Stanford Carr KM2 LLC to prepare a detailed development schedule and milestones as a condition to the board reviewing a further extension of the developer feasibility period beyond the 6 months period. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Member Evans moved, and the second was Member Johnson. Members, is there any other further discussion on the motion? If not, I will ask Lindsay to take a roll call. Oh,
On that motion, Member Evans,
Aye.
Member Johnson,
Aye.
Member Higa,
Abstain.
Member Nasir,
Aye.
Member Harai,
Aye.
Member Sakota,
Yes.
and Chair Ishii.
yes.
The motion passes with 6 yes, 1 abstention, and 2 excused. Yeah, it passes. Thank you.
The next item was inadvertently placed under an incorrect heading in the agenda and will be for information on discussion and not decision making. Again, information and discussion only. This is item number 4, findings and recommendations by the permitted interaction group established pursuant to the Hawaii Revised Statutes 92-2.5 B1 at the the HCDA Kakaako board meeting held on January 4th, 2023, to determine the requirements and qualifications for designating a non-governmental entity as a buyback agent for HCDA reserve housing units that are intended to be sold during the reserve housing units regulated term. Ms. Lindsay Doi, Asset Manager, will now present HCDA's staff report.
Members, what you have before you under tab 4 of the packet are the findings of the permitted interaction group. This really relates to the limited number of reserve housing units that are still in the regulated term and that would come up for buyback during that regulated term. So, for example, if an owner has to move away to the mainland, or if their family situation changes and they can no longer live in their unit. Currently, there's only 477 such units. That number will further reduce as those regulated terms expire. For example, by the end of 2024, 369 of those units will just term out. We will get additional regulated reserve housing units as Ulana and other projects are built though. So that's why we are trying to develop these guidelines. So what you see before you are the guidelines that the permitted interaction group proposed for evaluating the qualified nonprofit housing trust to govern the buybacks. It is very similar to our current HCDA reserve housing program, and it has the following minimum requirements. So first, there are buyer qualifications. These are very standard to pretty much all affordable housing developments. They're just saying that the owner needs to be a resident and a citizen. There's also income and asset restrictions. We took the current HCDA asset and income restrictions, so they are the same, but a nonprofit could have even more stringent restrictions if they so chose. We do have unit affordability guidelines. So all of that is basically saying that a unit must be priced so that the owner does not spend more than 33% of their household's gross monthly income on housing expenses. That's what we define as affordable. And then there will be a regulated term. This one is a little bit different. It says that the minimum shall be 5 years. So as you know, some units in Kakaako right now have 2-year terms, some have 5-year terms, and some have 10-year terms. Under this buyback proposed program, the minimum would be 5 years. And then, of course, owner occupancy would be required during that regulated term. The buyback price that we would set for the nonprofit to purchase that unit would be the same under the current rules. And we hope to issue this request for proposals in the coming 2 months, hopefully in April, if we can agree upon these restrictions. Let's see, is there anything I missed?
Oh, there was a statement that Craig Nakamoto wanted to make, but he had to leave. If I could
Sure,
go over those talking points for him.
absolutely.
So, HCDA and our sister agency, HHFDC, have worked collaboratively on the reserve housing unit buybacks for the past several years. We appreciate their efforts and working with them. It's all in the same effort to preserve affordable reserved housing, especially during the regulated term. Although HHFDC no longer has a capacity to serve in this role due to multiple new projects coming online that require their attention, the HCDA is committed to pursuing new partnerships with qualified nonprofit housing trusts. HCDA will also continue to further affordable housing goals by utilizing the shared equity that is due to the HCDA for every reserved housing unit, regardless if buyback was waived or if the regulated term has expired. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Members, are there any questions or comments to the staff report?
Question.
Member Hurai?
So we're still gonna do our own shared equity stuff, right?
So the shared equity component remains, for all units, regardless of
Okay.
buyback status, regulated term or not. The shared equity is factored into the buyback price, however. So the buyback price, there's several formulas, but it does factor that in. So it's not like a separate payment that the owner would make to HCDA.
Yeah, but when we get past the regulated period, and there's shared equity, right, on a sale or something, we're gonna do that in-house.
So that doesn't change. So
That's all, that's.
yeah, the shared equity component remains. We're just talking about the buybacks for units
That's
that
a
would be
rel-
released from our
Relatively
program.
simple computation.
Yeah. Mhm, mhm.
And the shared equity actually gives us an opportunity to continue moving forward with our mission of reserve housing, which I think is very beneficial.
And there's a lot of shared equity, since there's a lot of reserve housing units for us to use.
So this is regardless if it was buyback or waiver.
Yeah, no, it's just, you answered my question.
Okay.
Just want to make sure we, just want a clarification that we're continuing with the shared
Yes.
equity in-house.
Any other comments or questions? Any public testimony? Okay. Again, this is for discussion and comments only. No decision making, so thank you. Okay, last on our agenda, number 5, the monthly report and other status report of Garrett Sasaki will now present the monthly report.
Chair and Craig Nakamoto's absent. Can we just stand on the report as included in the packet?
Is there any questions or comments? If not, we will stand by what has been included in the packet. All right, well, thank you for those of you who joined us on Zoom, in person, or via YouTube. This concludes our business for today, and the meeting is adjourned, and the time is now 9:51. Thank you. Thank you, members.
Thank you.
Thank you.